Good morning, fellow hat nerds, man. Welcome to Hat Chat number 18. Hopefully my audio is coming in okay. Um, if you watched the show yesterday, you guys, oh, looks like I got some echoing. Let's see. Ah, there. That should take care of that. Sorry about that. As you know, I try to operate as as cleanly as possible on my with my technical stuff, but I'm a creature of habit, right? I don't know. I feel like as we get older, we get to you start approaching 50 like I am right now. Um, you get by because you just do what you did yesterday, or what you've done for the last month. And usually what that means is that my laptop um, over to my desktop. And essentially, what I did was uh, I kept my laptop here, but I forgot to turn it off, and it looked like it was still like on that stream. So, hey, what's up, Morgan? How are you doing, man? Morgan, you are like on the spot today. Like I just started the stream less than 2 minutes ago. Welcome back. It's good to see you again, Morgan, as usual. Morgan is my trusty moderator here, and she's again one of our regulars. In addition to being a great hat person. Morgan, how's it going? What's the any new hat news or anything else pertinent you want to share? Again, no pressure. Hey, Ian. Speaking of regulars, wow, I got my dynamic duo here. We got Morgan Brown over in New York City, and Ian over from London. Just happens to be my probably my two biggest viewers. In terms of the folks that I see here on all the time. Happy Sunday to both of you guys, by the way. I appreciate you guys joining me. I had a little bit of a technical issue here at the beginning. I don't know. I don't know if you guys both caught when I was going to. So like Morgan gave me the idea of trying to mess around with Streamlabs, um, and I started trying to do that, and essentially I had to kind of give up for I started yesterday, but then I had to prepare for the show. I started again. I'm taking a stepwise approach, right? So I had basically the laptop that I used for the past week or so was a Linux laptop. The Streamlabs program, is not able to run on Linux. So Morgan says I dropped off the black Stratoliner at Kev's yesterday. Nice. So you actually went to Kevin in Queens? I know I saw his picture showing that he was working on your hat. Oh, StreamYards. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if there's a difference, to be honest. I will look into it. Just so you know, Morgan, I am in the process of looking into that. I think I downloaded something called Streamlabs, but if it's StreamYards, I will look into that as well. I still have my laptop here, so I will probably, what I'm gonna do is maybe tonight, if I just having trouble focusing on, like, everything's just been like focused on like getting ready for the streams and then watching the streams, right? So like what I'll do is I will try, and again, I hopefully this doesn't come across as bad. I try to watch my stream in the evening, and then I start noticing, man, I could have done that better. I could have done this better. I could have been, there were so many mistakes that I catch, right? And you guys, the viewer probably catch that stuff in real time, and maybe don't even like think to point it out. But I try not to dwell too much on that. Like the OCD, my OCD sometimes kicks in, and I'll be like, oh man, I have to issue a correction, and I'm like, yeah, that's like my OCD will say that, and then my laziness will kick in as well. And my laziness is a powerful force. Don't be, like, you can't Luke's OCD and his laziness, sometimes they collide, and usually lazy wins out. That's why that's why I can't be bothered to change out that rope on my pork pie that I mentioned yesterday. You know what I mean? It's just like, besides the fact that I have this little compulsion that I don't like modifying the hats, right? So like when I get a hat, like I kind of feel like it should stay that way, right? And this is another one, like this hat right here, my Adam hats here. That's the focal point. This is one of those hats that I'm like, I want to bash. Like I tried to bash, and you can see it still has like an old dent here. This is just one of those felts that is not like the felt that you would get with a Borsalino, right? You get a Borsalino felt, and I talked about this yesterday. You can dry bash a Borsalino and it'll stay the way you bash it, right? I think Kevin's talked about that many times. And it's really well known, like for the folks that are really into Borsalino. And it's not just Borsalino. There's a lot of other felts that are just a lot more pliable, right? And I love those, right? I really love those felts because you don't have to steam them. For somebody like me that really doesn't like to steam their hats, like those pliable felts, like I only have one Borsalino, but like as soon as I touch it, it stays that way. You know what I mean? And maybe sometimes maybe like in the process of taking off the hat, I'll mess up the form. But it has no problem just like retaking the form really easily. Like I'll just use my fingertips and it'll really take the form. It really is kind of like a chameleon. You know what I mean? And I felt like that's probably one of those classifications, that somebody that really knows felts and the different qualities of felts. I feel like that's part of the framework, right? So like we talked about like the density of the felt. So Morgan says, I had several Borsalinos, all of which are gone now. Oh wow. Morgan, why did it go? Were they just like something that you didn't wear? I'm interested now. All were pre-bankruptcy, but I never understood the fascination for the felt. Yeah, see, I feel like, okay, this is why you got to love this hobby, right? One person's trash is another person's treasure, right? Borsalino gets almost universally loved and lauded, but Morgan here is like, well, I had several of the good ones, right? Pre-bankruptcy are supposed to be like the good Borsalinos. And I think you probably got them from Steve, right? Ian says the hat in my picture is an Adam. Oh, wow, that's awesome. Now I'm having trouble seeing the photo here, but that, if I'm looking at that correctly, Ian, that's probably one of like the early Adam hats. It looks like one of the early Adam hats. And we'll talk about Adam, and that whole line. I think really big fascination with Adam hats on the Fedora Lounge. I see some of it in the Facebook groups, but usually the Fedora Lounge, because there's a dedicated thread called Adam Alley for Adam hats. But Morgan, yeah, I'm interested in finding out about what you didn't like, because I know you're a big Stetson fan, right? So this is kind of where I start learning, from you guys, because again, not every hat can mean everything to everybody, right? There's no such thing. So Morgan says the reason they're all gone is because Mikhail of Huffbud ruined me. I love it. His craft first introduced me to the second ribbon, and now I cannot get any less than a 2-inch. Sorry, I said second. You said 2-inch ribbon, and now I cannot go any less than 2-inch ribbon on all my hats. Hey, you know what? That's good enough for me. I'm like, that seems like a very Hubbard probably ruined hats for a lot of people. Luckily he hasn't gotten to me yet, but I have a feeling that I might have. He might have that impact. And then Ian says it was new old stock from a Fedora Lounge auction. That is awesome. Shout out to the Fedora Lounge strikes again. So again, this is why I love this, the hat hobby, and especially the vintage hat hobby, right? I'm kind of like a little bit of I lean towards more the vintage side, right? That's probably why I don't have a Huffbud. That's probably why I don't have a KTG hat yet. And I also don't have one of Paul's, of PJ Murphy and Sons hats. They make great hats. I know there's not like it's any indication of the quality because, like I mentioned, Morgan just says Huffbud ruined her on Borsalino, and you know how highly Borsalino gets thought of. But again, we're talking about two different distinctions here, right? Huffbud is a bespoke hat maker, kind of like Paul is for Passion for Hats. And I got to imagine something like a bespoke hat is going to ruin you on a lot of what the off-the-shelf hats that you're going to get on something like a Borsalino, right? You're not going to get a custom-made Borsalino. I don't think they do that, but maybe they do that, but you probably have to pay an arm and a leg for it. But yeah, so we saw Ian. Ian said that his Adam hat is new old stock. I love it, from Fedora Lounge. Shout out to my Fedora Loungers or Fedora Lounge Lizards. And then Morgan says his rabbit, so that's Huffbud, his rabbit and hair felt is great for those who want to see Huffbud hats but don't want to invest $500+ just yet. Hey, that's a good shout out. That might be my, if I ever pull the trigger on a Huffbud, then now that you just gave me my pro tip. Shout out to Morgan and her pro tip here. Again, Morgan is 19 and schooling on Huffbud. That's one of the many reasons why Morgan is a great member of this community, and I consider her an ambassador. So yeah, for all those newbies onto Huffbud, Morgan just dropped the jewel here. Go for the rabbit and hair felt if you want to sample some of Mikhail's craft without dropping some serious coin. And then Ian says a shop got off, and they had many old hats in boxes from decades ago. See, you got to love that, right? This is one of the many reasons why I really dig the Fedora Lounge, and that's because, well, I think it's a known entity, right? So the people that are into hats, even if they don't want to hang out there, like they're not one of the regulars, they will go on there because they know if you want to find your tribe, that's definitely you're gonna go to Fedora Lounge, right? So like somebody that needs to sell off inventory, especially if you're asking a really reasonable price, you're gonna get somebody that's gonna pull the trigger, right? Like, the nice thing is that there's a lot of older folks there, probably folks that are retired, and maybe they made a killing in their career, and they probably got enough disposable income to kind of splurge on just a cool hat, right? And they're like, all right, I'm getting that one. It looks like Ian went and saw that Adam hat and said, you know what? That's coming home with me. I love it. And then Morgan says, wow, Ian, that sounds like a treasure trove. Yeah, right? So that was the big allure of Steve, right? Now, again, Morgan, you can tell me if Steve still has any of the pre-bankruptcy Borsalinos, because that's what he was known for. Like when he was on the Facebook groups and he was on the Fedora Lounge, everybody was just talking about, hey, if you still want a shot at getting a pre-bankruptcy Borsalino, you go see Steve in Brooklyn. And Ian says, my friend had a hat handmade from a contact of mine on Fedora Lounge. They sent him a former, which he returned. Yeah, you see, I feel like that's a beauty of, like I said, of having what I like to call a small world. Like, this world is a lot smaller than it used to be. We now have ways for these custom hatters, right? They figured out, okay, if I need to go reach out to a customer in the other side of the globe, they can do something like what Ian described. They send you a former, you go and you basically set it up and then send it back. And essentially they now have the ability to custom size your hat. And now maybe just a few short weeks later, hopefully, sometimes it takes longer, right? Depending on, what kind of setup the hat maker has, you may have to wait a little bit a while, but you know what I mean? That's why we have a collection, right? That's why you have like, okay, I'm going to keep wearing these, or maybe I'll buy something else while I wait for my custom hat. And that's the beauty of it, right? Luckily, like I said, I know here we probably have a decent number of hats between the three of us. And that's the beauty of this hobby, right? Ian says, it was a copy of Doctor Who's hat. Wow. I love it. You see, like I said, we have, like I said, because we are in this hobby and we have other hobbies that intersect. Usually, what happens is, in addition to being a hat nerd, you could be a watch nerd, you could be a movie nerd, you could be a music nerd, right? So, Ian, I know you're a musician. Like, we're not like hats are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to us as individuals, right? We are very much a collection of a lot of different hobbies and passions. And right, we know Kevin with the guitars, right? Like hats and guitars, that's his thing. And sometimes it's a collection that you can see, like with hats and guitars. Kevin has there's a lot of hat people that happen to be musicians as well. Like, I think those are two hobbies. Like I mentioned, watches, just like I think hats and watches go together. Hats and alcohol, right? The people that are real snobs about whiskey and about rum and about bourbon. Hats and cigars, right? We know that's a thing. We know whiskey, hats, and cigars is a thing. It's an iconic look. And I feel like this, the somebody commissioning a hat because Johnny Depp wears it, or because Nicolas Cage, or they saw it in a movie, right? It's like somebody that wants to see like Popeye Doyle. I want to commission a hat that looks just like Popeye Doyle's famous pork pie. That exists. And I love the fact that we have artisans that are able to put that together and make that happen, right? It might cost you a little bit, but that hat was yours. It was meant for you. And I gotta respect that. And then Ian says, Tom Baker as the doctor. Yeah. Man, Ian, I feel like you are one of my fellow movie and music buffs. So I love it. And I think that you have probably like I said, I didn't think about the idea of rewatching Public Enemies. It was something where interacting with you, I was like, oh yeah, it's been too long. So I'm trying to just find some time to rewatch that movie because it's been too long. Like, I feel like I forgot a lot of it, but I do know it's an iconic movie. And well, I'm gonna do that just because of you, Ian. You inspired me. Morgan adds one side up and one side down. All right, I love it. Yeah, I mean, essentially, like, we talked about like pliability. This hat that I have now will not, you can, again, I think you can see it on this side. So it's my left side that has like a little dent that I worked out, only because I got tired of like that dent staying, and the other side would not. So this right side will not take a dent, and I would have to steam it. In order to take the shape, I would have to steam it, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to get into steaming. Maybe one day, like I said, maybe one day I'll like get a real, like I'll get a real bug in my bonnet, or a bee in my bonnet. Like I probably, like most of the world says, it's probably just me that says bug in my bonnet. But I'll do it. But the thing is, I don't need to, because I have two other hats, right? I have my Dobbs Hamburg that I think has two side dents, front dents, and I have my Dobbs 25. I love that Dobbs 25, and that Dobbs 25 is pliable. Like, it takes the shape, and it actually looks like cotton. That's what I love about it. Dobbs 25. I didn't even know there was such a thing as a Dobbs 25 until I got that hat. But it's one of my signature hats. I wore it yesterday, and I went out to eat yesterday in that Dobbs 25. Love it. And that's the reason why when I went and wear this hat today, I said, you know what? I'm just gonna take the side dents, these front dents out. I didn't do a great job because I just did it by hand. So you can still see the dent here. But this one right here, this is the reason why I got tired of looking at it with not an asymmetrical dent. So whatever, it's these things that maybe nobody else would notice as much as you do. It's kind of like when you work on a piece of like some sort of craft, and you see all the imperfections, and somebody else is like, you're nuts, that looks great. And you're like, no, but I can't unsee it, right? So yeah, it's just one of those things. I feel like there's a lot of OCD, even if it's not like a formal, like a full-blown OCD. I feel like hat and watch nerds, and probably a lot of other nerds, a lot more OCD. We're into details, right? Anyway, Ian says, I smoke a pipe and the odd cigar. All right, all right. See, I never gotten into cigars. That's something that I do want to try. I have family members that are really into cigars, and I just feel like it goes well with the hat, right? Maybe and I'm also like not really a fine liquor connoisseur. So kind of like the single malt Scotch or the whiskeys or the bourbons and whatever have you. I just don't know enough about it. Like I don't know what I'm doing. Like I feel like I haven't really done like the background, and maybe all it takes is a good like friend or family member to kind of like introduce me. Um, you know, but again, I'm not a heavy drinker to begin with. You know what I mean? So it would be like I'd probably get one drink and maybe one cigar, and then I'll just hold on to it for like I don't know for forever, right? I just my drink of choice is the White Russian, like the Big Lebowski and the dude. And I just love that drink. It just is something that appeals to me. And a lot of I get make fun of a lot for it, but I love that drink, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. So shout out to my White Russian aficionados out there. And it gets universally recognized, right? So every time I get if I go to a bar and I order a White Russian, invariably there'll be one or two people in there in that bar that will ask me what that drink is because it looks delicious, right? I don't know. I think it looks delicious. And yeah, Ian says a quick steam with a kettle. I know. I've seen all the videos. Like Kevin has great videos. I think there's another YouTube channel which I'm gonna plug here, but hopefully I don't butcher the name. I believe it's called Hat Life Adventures. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me. It's something like Hat Life Adventures. And the gentleman I'm familiar with, I just can't recall his first name. Great YouTube channel. He has really good content, and he steams with a kettle as well. Kevin actually saw him doing that, I believe, and then said, "Hey, I want to try that." Okay. Ian says, okay. Ian says, I'm an anarcho dandyist. Buck the trend by dressing up to the nines on a trip into the smoke. Anarcho. Wow. Wait a minute. Are you talking about a cigar, Ian? I'm not familiar with anarcho. I believe anarcho is, you're referring to a cigar. If you are, just let me know because I want to be, maybe you're going to be Ian, that guy that gets me into a cigar. I just again, I feel like it really goes well with some good company, maybe some good music, and maybe a fine hat, right? Um, yeah. Morgan says yes. That's the channel name. I can't recall his name either. Yeah, super nice guy. Super nice guy. I recommend that channel. Again, when I recommend these channels, I'm just doing it as a fellow hat nerd, right? I don't like when I go and I plug Paul's hat shop in this channel. I don't have any kind of commission system. Again, not that I'm opposed to doing that. That's something that could happen in the future, where I get sponsorship and I have some kind of deal, and then I'll divulge that, obviously, so you guys know, and that I'm not like that. There's no strings attached. That I'm getting a kickback, but because again, I don't hate money. Like I feel like money is a means to get better hats and better stuff, and just and also be a very generous, right? Maybe I can give away some more hats if I can if I can make money on this channel and I can give away hats, I will give them away because again, if I know they're going to go to a good home, why not, right? So yeah, Morgan said that's the channel. So it's Hat Life Adventures, really great channel. And then Ian says it's a fashion trend. Dress like a gentleman in the 40s. Yeah, the thing is, I feel like, and again, I don't know if this crosses over into the UK. It sounds like it does, but we really have a lot of fans of nostalgia, right? I think that's part of the reason why that attracts a lot of my fellow hat nerds. Is that the hats really bring us back to a time that we have and we recall with a lot of fondness, right? So you have folks that will only collect hats from 1940s or earlier. You have your folks that are really into the 40s and mainly because post World War II, right? World War II, during and post are the 40s, World War II. Like it was a good time to right? It was a boom time, an economic boom. A lot of we call it the golden era here in the States. And then Ian, you mentioned that it was similar for the UK. There's a lot of folks that want to relive that time, and it reflects in their hat collection. It reflects in their clothing. And I dig it, right? I dig that whole thing. Like I just happen to have a lot of hats for a couple of reasons. They're easier to obtain. A lot of the hats that were made in the 60s and the 70s, and then thereafter are a lot easier to attain for a vintage hat nerd like myself. They're a lot less expensive. So like, that you can get a better deal if you're willing not to be locked into a certain era. But there's a benefit, right? We talked about that everybody has a theme to their collection, and some people will stick to 1940s or maybe even pre-50s, or it could be even pre-60s. They do that because it gives them a way to get to implement a theme. They're willing to pay a lot more for a single hat because maybe they don't want to own every hat in the world. So it has a function, it has a utility, and I'm all for it, right? I feel like maybe I benefit from having a more locked in theme. But like I said, my theme is when I see the hat, if I want to own it, I'm buying it. I don't care what kind of hat it is, Ian says, apart from the war, the 40s were great. Or so an old friend of mine told me years ago. Yeah, like I said, again, we know about the baby boomer generation that came about because of that prosperity, right? So folks that were born between 1946 and 1964 are known. I think that's the official designation. Somebody can fact check me on that. But the designation is 1946 to 1964. So when you are a boomer, you are part of the baby boom generation. And I know it's kind of become even derogatory. So I don't mean that in the derogatory sense. I know like there's been a movement called OK Boomer. I don't know. Like I laugh at it, but I'm not a baby boomer. But maybe people take offense. I don't like if I mention something like that, it's not meant to be offensive. I know some people like do that as like a counter. Like it's kind of like the next generation's, kind of expressing some disdain for the baby boomers, because essentially the baby boomers own the majority of wealth, right? And instead of celebrating that, apparently we chose to villainize it. And I'm like, that's sad. That's not what the kind of person I am. I don't do that. I respect baby boomers. I respect the silent generation that came before them, and the Gen Xers that I'm part of the Gen X generation. I think we need to respect all the generations. They all contributed a lot to the subsequent generations. I think it's sad, to be honest. It's like part of like that outrage stuff. I try to avoid that. I don't have time for. There's enough negativity out there, and I don't have time for it. Like I try to stay. That's part of like my good Luke's personality. Morgan says that trend was rude. I agree. Morgan, I completely agree. I still think it's rude. I know some of it is like done in a comical sense, and I can laugh at some of it. But some of it also is very fiery and very just full of hate, and I got no time for that. I respect older people way too much to be able to be doing that. Like I said, silent generation, baby boomers, Gen Xers, Gen Y, Zoomers, all of that stuff. There's a place for all of them, and I want them all here on my channel. And this is not going to be a channel that's going to be, my moderator is a very young person, Morgan is, and I think she is a great ambassador for hats. Just like Ian is an older gentleman, and I think he is also a great ambassador. So, I welcome all generations. You don't need to be afraid. And I will say, if you come in here with that, trying to diss another generation, unless it's something that's like, that I think is comical, I'm going to go and I'm going to say, I'm going to put a stop to it. Like I said, I don't want anybody coming in here and feeling, self-conscious about their age and what their place is in society. We don't need that. I won't stand for it. And then Morgan, now that I know that you won't stand, Morgan is my deputy here. Morgan will oust you because she has the power. So yeah, let's make sure I didn't. Yeah, Ian says it's a designation, not an insult. Correct, exactly. That's the way I use it. And as something as a sign of respect, it's like, hey, you lived through some very pertinent times. I want to learn from that, right? So I want to learn from the people that were around, like my parents, that witnessed, the experience, or had the experience of Kennedy being assassinated. That was a very big marker in history. Pearl Harbor, those that kind of saw and were around still, that were around when Pearl Harbor happened, because it's etched in history. It's a very, very big marker in history. And I think a lot of those markers are what people use when they come up with those designations, those years, right? Ian says, I'm a baby boomer myself. And there you go. Welcome, Ian, right? We have Ian, who's a baby boomer. I'm a Gen Xer. And Morgan, I think, is a Zoomer, right? Like Gen Z. I don't know. Hopefully Zoomer is not a bad designation. I've heard the term Zoomer. I don't know. I hope it's not like derogatory. If it is, then I'll stop using it. But Gen Z, I believe, is the more formal designation. So we have boomers and we have Zoomers. So hopefully it's not derogatory. So yeah. Oh wow, Ian is born 1957. My hat, my Dobbs Hamburg is from 1957, Ian. So it's as old as you are. That's awesome. I love that. See, I'm tickled by that. Now, 1957 to me now holds a lot more weight, right? The 50s, like I said, 50s are the golden era. Morgan says same year as my dad. Yeah, love it. Hey, Ian, no need to cringe on that one, man. That's good. It sounds like you're doing one. You're interacting on YouTube with a Gen Xer and a Gen Z, talking about the things that we love. And you're at it. You made this stream, like you and Morgan have made this channel that much better because you guys chose to come here and hang out with me. So it's not lost on me. So just FYI. Yeah, Morgan says, no, it isn't. It's a play on boomer. Okay, got it. Good. Yeah, I just want to make sure when I'm using the word Zoomer, and it's not something that somebody's going to feel bad about. But yeah, Ian says, cool and smiling. Hey, that's right. You got to smile, man. Like I said, remember, there's a functional basis of smiling, and that allows you, like, it makes you feel better, right? The research supports it. So I'm like, smile, baby. Like, it's not it's like medicine. What's probably not good medicine is this fizzy drink, but I'm still going to drink it. Shout out to Aldi for supplying these very cheap fizzy drinks. Again, I'm not sponsored by Aldi, although I'm not opposed. I don't mind some of that Aldi money. I might be able to get some really good hats from some Aldi money. So if anybody that works at Aldi sees this, I'm down with a sponsorship. I'm down with Aldi. I've been down with Aldi for quite a long time. So, shout out to Aldi, and the sister brand Lidl. Also have it here, but I'm more of an Aldi person. But Lidl's a sister brand and does really good. Both German-based supermarkets that made. I forgot what year they started coming over to the U.S., but they have a very, very strong presence in the U.S. now. And I give them a lot more. I give them a lot of money. There's so much money that I give Aldi. I don't give it, right? I exchange it, but I spend a lot of money at Aldi. They have the cheapest prices. I can't help it. It's like I probably owe a few hats to Aldi because I'm able to save a few bucks, and then I can put it and reinvest it in a new hat, right? So yeah. Really good stuff. Thank you guys for sharing. I know some folks are probably like, when are you going to talk about the hats, right? Like, honestly, the hat is a straw man. Like, the stuff I'm doing with you guys, that's why I do this, right? It's not just for me to be like, here's my hat and this is why it's so cool. I mean, I like that, and that's the straw man. But really, I came here to have kind of a in vivo discussion with my fellow hat nerds. So thank you guys. Ian says nearly all hat folk or pipe people are great and friendly. I gotta agree. I gotta agree. My buddy Josh smokes a pipe. He's not a hat person, but he smokes a pipe. He actually switched from uh, smoking cigarettes to a pipe, and it's changed everything. Meaning, well, besides the fact that it makes him look a little bit more sophisticated, the smell it smells a lot better. Like he invests in some really good tobacco, and it almost makes me want to smoke a pipe. Right? It's that smell. Like I'm sure Ian knows what I'm talking about. And then Ian says we nod at each other when we meet by chance somewhere. That's right. That's what they do, right? The old nod, right? I'm a big fan of the nod. There's also like the hat tip, right? If you don't want to take off your hat, you can always do this, right? And I think that's, I don't know how many people recognize that as kind of like a sign of respect or a salutation, but an acknowledgement, right? I think that's kind of one of those things that we try to borrow from old hat culture, from Western cowboy culture. You kind of had the hat tip, but I think that's a great thing, right? When you don't really you don't want to stop by and have a conversation, but you want to acknowledge your neighbor or somebody walking by. You can do this, and hopefully they get the idea. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like everybody knows this, and then in reality, maybe it doesn't. Maybe they don't, right? But yeah, I agree. It's kind of like I feel like, and again, I have no data to back this up. I feel that like in my informal experience with various subcultures, right? I've been a part of a lot of different subcultures. I feel like the hat subculture has a lot less jerks per capita than others, and I really like that. It's just another reason to become a hat person. Again, I don't know if it's chicken or the egg. What came first? Where is it? Are you cool and then you get into hats, or maybe hats make you a cooler person or a nicer person? But I feel like I agree wholeheartedly with Ian. They are better, just nicer people, and they want to share. Ian says much healthier. You have to relax so it treats stress. So I believe Ian's referring to pipe smoking. I agree. It seems much healthier because cigarettes are just, well, they're basically a bunch of cancer sticks. And if you have a chance to choose and invest in higher quality tobacco, again, I'm not sitting here endorsing smoking. That's not what I'm doing. Again, I'm a big believer in personal freedom, and everybody should be free to do what they like as long as it doesn't harm their fellow man, right? I just want to make sure I don't offend anybody that sees this later on. It's like, oh, now you're trying to tell kids, Morgan is 19. Morgan, if you don't drink and you don't smoke, you don't need to start. Like I said, don't take any of this stuff as like advice. Remember, you don't get your advice from Luke or anybody that watches Luke. Choose. You pick and choose your own decisions. Make good ones and ones that you're comfortable with. And I just want to make sure I say that. Like everything in here is like obviously for entertainment, mostly mine, right? Everything that you see here is mostly for my entertainment. And if you happen to be entertained by it, then well, God bless. But yeah. So Ian says much healthier. You have to relax so it treats stress. I doff my hat according to the ancient rules. Meeting ladies or in a lift when a lady is present, etc. I love it. Ian, very smooth. I like that. I like that. Also, you gotta love the lift, right? A lift would be what we call an elevator, if I'm correct. But you guys use the term lift, just like Ian used the term nipper yesterday, and I got a real kick out of it. Yeah. So love is the law. Yeah, I agree. Right? It's like Paul McCartney once famously said, "Love is all you need." Right? Um, and I think Paul McCartney also says, in the end, it's what's the love you make is greater than the love you take. I probably butchered that, but shout out to Paul McCartney because, between him and John Lennon, wow, what a catalog, right? It's basically poetry, right? If you go through some of the old Beatles albums, and you really listen. And I'm somebody that it's a little harder for me, like to kind of really listen to the words because I'm so in tune to like the melody. So I'm like rocking out to the melody, but every once in a while I'll be in my car and I'll throw on some Beatles music, or I have some headphones on, and then you gotta admire, and then also kind of like when you hear some of the stuff that the obviously drug inspired lyrics of John Lennon. It's like the Yellow Submarine, and all the other the egg. I am the Eggman. I am the walrus. Right. I'm like, okay, I have no idea what he's really referring to, but it sounds good, right? Like I always default, it sounds good. That's like when you have food that doesn't look good. You can say something like, it doesn't look like much, but it eats good. I think I got that from the movie Rhinestone. Shout out to Rhinestone. If you want to see a Stallone movie and see Sylvester Stallone doing something that you probably never imagined, like become a country music singer, Rhinestone. He actually hates the fact that he made that movie. If you ever watch Sylvester Stallone, and I know that not everybody's a big fan of his, but I know Sylvester Stallone haters that actually love the movie Rhinestone. So it's funny that it's like opposite. It's a movie that Stallone hates that he ever made, but people that hate Stallone love that movie. I guess it makes sense, but there you go. If you hate Stallone, watch Rhinestone. I believe it came out in the 80s, and it co-stars with Dolly Parton. I won't ruin the movie any more than I already have, but I think I get a chuckle out of that. Anyway, shout out to Rhinestone, shout out to Sylvester Stallone, and shout out to Dolly Parton. I believe they're all still alive and kicking, and well, God bless. And Ian says Morgan is a hat lady, so smart. Yes. I mean, like obviously we are a very male dominated hobby. I actually mentioned it the other day. Like, I think fedoras are something that you see more women wearing, but something like a Homburg. Morgan said she saw my Homburg and was interested now in maybe getting a Homburg. Morgan, I recommend it wholeheartedly. I think you look really sharp in a Homburg. I think like the pork pie is another one. I feel like there should be more women out there, more women in the hobby, but also there should be more women that are taking the chance to wear. Like I said, I think they exist, right? If I did a Google search and said, women in a Hamburg or women in a pork pie, I feel like I find it. But like I'm just taking an informal observation, informal survey based on like my time on the Fedora Lounge and my time in Facebook. One, there's not as many women in or at least they should be more, right? Women are probably 50 something. I think they're more than 50 something percent of our population. And I feel like we should try to see if we can get them to be 50% of the hobby. Maybe that's too lofty, but I feel like if the more we go and we treat, the more our fellow hat nerds that are men, treat women like they're our equals, because they very, very well are, not to get on a soapbox and get too preachy. We owe it to ourselves, right? To create more younger hat nerds and more female hat nerds, and all other else. Like there's room in this hobby for everybody. And we owe it to ourselves to be good ambassadors so that we can encourage people, right? So who knows? Morgan probably inspired several females. Who knows? I don't know all of Morgan's hat journey. I know some of it that she's shared, but like I said, regardless of what's happened in the past, Morgan's probably, like, if she hasn't already, she probably is in the process of influencing a lot of future hat nerds that happen to be female, that happen to be Gen Zers. I love it, right? Like I said, she can speak to an audience that somebody like myself or maybe Ian that we can't speak to because they don't relate to us, but they relate to Morgan. So I love that. That's why I want to create here. If they already exist, great, and they happen to find my channel. If I can create one, right? Morgan existed. I didn't create Morgan. Morgan, I knew before I started this YouTube channel. I knew her from the Facebook groups and Kevin's Hats and Guitars. But I'm so glad that she found my channel. So yeah. And then Morgan says, "Thank you, sir." We see that's the level of politeness. Like I said, nobody could not appreciate "thank you," right? And then she adds the "sir." You know what I mean? I love that. Like that's politeness. Like even though Ian might not like need a "sir" or "thank you," we just assume it's like I will offer it to you because it's kind of like that initial respect that we give each other, and I gotta love that. I'm big on respect culture, and that's one of the things that we find a lot in the hack community. There's a lot of like respect, and sometimes we even like get that. Like I mentioned, I've had some interactions with some hat nerds that are far from respectful. Um, and instead, sometimes they'll catch me on the wrong day, and I will give back as good as I get or better because I can do that because I grew up. It's like there's nothing you can go and tell me that I haven't heard before. Trust me, and worse. I like I said, I grew up in a very urban environment, and you had to kind of just protect yourself. Not that I grew up fighting every day, but you protect yourself verbally, right? Maybe you do something verbal, right? We call it verbal judo, or verbal aikido, and you protect yourself verbally so that it doesn't get physical, right? It's kind of like, no, you don't want to do that, right? It's like you don't want to do that, because, like I said, if you go and you escalate it, I might not turn the other cheek, but usually Luke does. You know what I mean? Just FYI, I don't recommend violence or anything like that. Like I said, I'm big into self protection, but not necessarily violence for the sake of violence. That's Violence never solves anything, to be honest. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's probably better to walk away, right? That's like in New York City, I used to go and I used to carry around two wallets for a long time. I carried two wallets, one that had my money and one that had no money, and maybe like some fake cards or whatnot, just in case I got robbed, and then I could hand over my fake wallet. It's just some things that I don't know. My brain comes up with. I don't know where I got that idea from, but I had it in my mind that if I got robbed in New York City, and I even did that when I moved out here to the DC area. I stopped doing that. FYI, I just like, okay, I'm tired of carrying around two wallets, because now I basically, if somebody wants to rob me, especially if they have a weapon, I'm gonna hand over everything I got. Right? It's like I don't like. It's just money, right? It's just money and stuff. Like I could be all right. You know what I mean? And I'm like, that's nothing's worth fighting for. I don't. If they want my hat, if they want my cheap pie chain or my watch, right? I'd be really upset if I lost my watch. But it's not worth, like, right, especially if I'm with some company. Like, I'm not going to endanger myself and endanger whoever I'm with, because I want to be a hero. Don't I mean, it's not worth it, guys. If I have a situation where it makes sense to kind of just protect. So, some people just have mental health issues, right? They don't want you. They don't just want your money. They want something else. They want to like physically harm you because they got some issue they're dealing with, or mental health and otherwise. When they want more than my wallet, and then I have to defend myself, then I'm going to try to do that to the best of my ability, right? Luckily, I've never had to deal with that. I never had to do that, but I don't know. You can't really prepare for that, right? I know some people say you can, but I just feel like there's adrenaline, and all that stuff, and like you kind of just, over the course of time, you just have to be prepared. I'm sure Ian in London is the same thing. Even though you guys don't have a lot of like gun violence, violence exists. Violence is part of our history, and it will continue to be part of our history as long as we're human beings, and we just how do you be street smart and not be an easy target? I think is the name of the game. Ian says violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. Isaac Asimov, great quote, Ian. I love that. I see Ian, besides being a hat nerd, is also a fan of the quotes. I am as well. I think I probably butcher them a lot more often than Ian does. If I had to go and to check up that quote, I'm sure Ian got it exactly right. Shout out to Ian. Keep those quotes coming, because, like I said, I might have to borrow some of them. Like that's a good one. Yeah, I agree completely. Like also like language is another one, right? A lot of people curse and use curse words or cuss words, as some people in the U.S. would refer to it, because they don't know how to express themselves otherwise, right? If they're not dropping an F-bomb, they can't speak. Some of it can be charming, right? Like I occasionally will do it, and and sometimes I'll apologize because I don't want to be known as some really crass individual. But there's a time and a place, right? And sometimes when you say it too much, it just takes the power out of it, right? Sometimes when you overuse your curse words, it becomes like white noise, and it loses its luster and its power. So choose your words wisely, guys. I mean, words have power, and sometimes have even more power than actual physical, physicality. Right? Like that old adage, the pen is mightier than the sword. I don't know who came up with that, but it feels like it's very true, especially if you have to deal with a lawyer. Right? If you have to deal with a lawyer, then you kind of really know, or a judge, that the pen is mightier than the sword, right? Somebody writes you an invoice, you're like, oh boy, maybe I should have been a little bit more careful with my money. Somebody sends you a bill, right? You get into a car accident or something like that, and insurance and all that stuff. Man, geez, I don't miss that. I still drive a car, but because I work from home, I don't really have to drive as often as I just drive around to go to the supermarket. I'll drive to go to a restaurant, the few times that I do. But luckily my old Toyota Corolla is probably going to last forever now if I end up working from home, like I do now. I hope I get to work from home forever. If I do get to work from home forever, I'll probably never retire, to be honest. I do stuff that I love, and whether I'll do that forever, I'll probably do something else. But if I could do it from home, and that's probably this YouTube channel. Maybe this YouTube channel will be my retirement gig when I ever do get to retirement. I'd love to do this. Talk about hats all day and get paid for it. That's fantastic. I love it. Like, maybe I won't even need to work. I don't know. I don't think my channel will ever be that big, and that's okay. I am comfortable with that. This is a passion project, not a money-making scheme. Again, I don't hate money, but I have enough money where I don't need to like pander and like become like one of these. I don't know. Again, I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to get into negativity. Anyway, what I will do at this portion is share some slides so you can see some of this hat. So those folks that came here for Adam hats, let's talk a little bit about this Adam hats. And you guys know the routine by now, right? So I'm going to do this again. Remember, I'm off of Linux now, so I'm now back on my Windows machine. So I'm going to try to do this without breaking anything. But again, this is like, I'm more used to Linux than I am Windows these days. And, I do still have a Windows machine. It's probably my best computer is my Windows machine, meaning like spec wise. So hopefully my streams will come out a lot cleaner. I don't know. I'm trying to take a stepwise approach to these streams so that you guys get a quality stream. I upgraded my audio already. I have a little lapel mic that I paid a pretty penny for. So yeah, hopefully little by little, I'm going to reinvest in this channel. So that way the folks like Ian and Morgan that listen to my content consistently, and anybody else that might see this in the future, that you guys benefit and don't have to deal with like glitchy content. So I will go and share my screen and we'll see if this works out. Let's see if this works. It might not. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to do it. Let's see if, yeah, I don't know if it's going to work. Let's see here if, yeah, see, this is something I probably should have tested. Oh, no, I think I got it. Let's see if this works. Bam. Hey, look at that. Just a shade under a decade. But I think I got it. Guys, as usual, let me know if you guys are seeing this. That way, I'm not. Yes. Okay. Perfect. Working good. Thank you, Morgan and Ian, my faithful viewers here. Again, for those folks that know about Adam hats, they kind of have like a cult following. Like they're really known. And I mentioned Adam hats and I mentioned Champ hats in the past. Both those brands, I think Adam hats probably more so than Champ, have a like people have like a soft spot for Adam hats, and I do as well. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to like say I don't have that, but it's kind of like the reputation of Adam hats really has been it's a working man's hat, right? So in the days of when Stetson and Dobbs were like the two icons that everybody was chasing. Probably Mallory and Kavanaugh and we talked about Dunlap. You know, those were like the premium brands. And then we had Adam hats come out of like essentially that a counter movement. They were like so the folks that came up and developed Adam hats, and I'll talk more about them a little bit in a little bit. They were like, holy cow, I see an opportunity here, right? Just like a good business should. The folks that put out Adam hats said, okay, there's an underserved market here that we can capitalize on. And we're going to like, there's not everybody has money. Like this was back, I think Adam hats dates back to the 20s. So the origins of Adam hats from the 1920s, and essentially it came out to be this is a hat for the everyman, right? So those who can't afford a Stetson, who can't afford a Mallory or a Dobbs or a Kavanaugh, like this is the kind of hat that's good. This is the market that we're after, you know. And obviously anybody else that wants to buy an Adam hats. So it's an iconic brand, but not because it's a luxury brand, if that makes any sense, right? Yesterday we talked about Dunlap, that was very much a luxury brand, as was Kavanaugh for Hat Corporation of America, the big conglomerate. This was quite the opposite, right? This was again gonna be like that. I probably equate it to maybe like Gap or Old Navy, right? I mean, I might be dating myself here when I talk about those brands. I know Old Navy still exists. I haven't seen a Gap in a while, so I think Gap still exists because I think Gap owns Old Navy. Anyway, I'm just trying to give you an analogy. If you want to talk about like GM brands, like I mentioned yesterday, this would be very much the Chevrolet of GM, right? Remember we talked about how Dunlap was like a Buick and Kavanaugh was the Cadillac, right? You got Cadillac was Kavanaugh. The Buick brand analogy was Dunlap and Knox. This is very much kind of like the entry level type audience, for brands, and this would be on this competing with Chevrolet. So just for a little bit for my car nerds, right? Again, the reason why I got this hat was like, okay, this was grayish to me, even though the color, I'll show you in a second. I think the color was listed as Bermuda, which is green, and I can see some of green hue here. But to me, when I saw this, okay, this is a gray hat, even though I think the color is technically green. Again, maybe it's just, you never know what happens with an old vintage hat, right? We talked a little bit about my Morris Hamburg, and I got that Morris Hamburg from Kevin, who was convinced it was from the 30s. On the Fedora Lounge, they're convinced that it's much newer, which I kind of align now that I know what I learned from the Fedora Lounge, that it's kind of a newer type hat based on the emblem. But it doesn't matter. It was a well-worn hat when I got it from Kevin, and it had what people that collect vintage things like to refer to as patina. There was a patina that you get on certain vintage hats, especially around, besides the felt, but around the brim, right? The binding of the brim, and a lot on the ribbon of the brim, right? I mean, the ribbon of the hat. So those things, when they're exposed to sunlight, it might deviate from the original color. And some people love that. Some people hate it. I happen to love it only because I'm the type of hat nerd that really loves hats that were worn, right? Now, not beat up, right? I don't like the hats that were torn and abused, right? So I avoid those hats, and some people go after them. Ian says, hey, alas, I have to skedaddle. Hey, Ian, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you joining us today. Thank you again for making this stream. And hey, I'll catch you at the next one. Have a great day, Ian. Happy Saturday. Shout out to Ian over in London, one of my regulars. He has to go. I think I still got Morgan here with me. Yeah, I love it. You guys don't need to like say bye, but I definitely welcome it. You guys are like, it's kind of like hanging out at somebody's house, right? It's like, all right, gotta go now. I'll see you. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you in the next one, right? Take it easy, Ian. I appreciate it. Cheers. Cheers, and to that Sunday cigar. If you end up having one today, or maybe you already had it. But yeah, shout out to Ian. Um, yeah, it's Sunday. Oh, sorry, it's Sunday. Yes, sorry. Did I say Saturday? Sorry. Sometimes I forget. Again, sometimes the downside of working from home is that I don't know the difference in terms of like, because I work from home. Um, Sometimes I don't get outdoors and like interact with the world other than my walks, right? So like maybe I don't need to go shopping and I don't go out there. I don't read a newspaper. I get everything from my phone. So yeah, sometimes I don't know what day it is. So thank you, Morgan. I appreciate it. Ben Stiller. Okay, I don't know. I got Hag 90 said Ben Stiller. I don't know what that means, Hag. Are you saying that I look like Ben Stiller? I might. I think I might look like Ben Stiller. I like Ben Stiller a lot, to be honest. I don't mind that. Hag, you feel free to mention what about Ben Stiller. I'm interested. I actually like Ben Stiller a lot. Shout out to Ben Stiller. There's something about Mary, Tropic Thunder, Zoolander, right? Zoolander. Ben Stiller's got a lot of classics, Thumbnail. Okay, Ben Stiller from the Thumbnail. You're saying that my thumbnail looks like Ben Stiller? Maybe, it was complete accident. So I mean, again, I don't know what that like. Essentially, what Ben Stiller like. Hopefully, you like Ben Stiller. If I look like Ben Stiller and you like Ben Stiller, good. If you don't like Ben Stiller, then well, whatever. I don't know. Thumbnail, please confirm. Okay, now I don't know what you're asking, Hag. What do you want me to confirm? I'm curious. Sorry, if I don't know what you're asking, I'm gonna ask for clarification. I just don't want to assume that I know what folks are talking about, and hopefully you don't take offense. No offense intended, Hag. But what do you want me to confirm? I can confirm that I'm not Ben Stiller, so I just FYI, I'm definitely not Ben Stiller. Yeah, no offense to Ben Stiller. Yeah. Morgan's laughing here. I have no idea, Morgan. I mean, I don't know if Hag is just trolling me, and that's fine. Sometimes I do like a good trolling. But yeah, I'm not Ben Stiller. Morgan can tell you right away that I'm not Ben Stiller. Morgan, can you confirm? Yeah. Okay. Morgan said Morgan's just being honest because I haven't met Morgan in real life. Maybe I am Ben Stiller. Ben, if you're seeing this, then maybe we're related. I'd like to find out. Now if you don't know Ben Stiller, Ben Stiller is the son of Jerry Stiller, right? Oh, Morgan said she doesn't even know who Ben Stiller is. Morgan, Ben Stiller's an actor. He's a comedic actor, very, very self-deprecating, which I really appreciate. Like he usually plays the lovable loser, right? He's like the loser in a lot of movies, and he's just very funny about it. And he's made a lot of movies: Tropic Thunder, Along Came Polly. There's Something About Mary. What am I forgetting? I'm sure there's a bunch of them. Dodgeball. There's a movie called Dodgeball that he made that's really good. Meet the Fockers. Yeah, Meet the Fockers is a great one. That's actually one I recommend probably as if you don't want to know about Ben Stiller and you want to know like a quality Ben Stiller movie that I think most people would love, Meet the Fockers. Or Meet the Parents. Meet the Fockers is the sequel. Meet the Parents is the original. I'd say watch Meet the Parents first, and if you like Meet the Parents, then maybe you'll like Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller is the son of Jerry Stiller. Jerry Stiller is a comedian. He's a comedian, but he's an actor that's known for, he played in Zoolander, but he's also known for for Seinfeld. So he played George's dad on Seinfeld. So if somebody knows Seinfeld and you know George's dad, who's a character, that's Ben Stiller's dad, Jerry Stiller, who passed away, by the way. So Jerry Stiller is no longer alive. Both Jerry and Ben are comedy. They're like comedy gold. So I definitely recommend Ben Stiller and Meet the Parents. Watch Meet the Parents. See if you like that, and then maybe you become a Ben Stiller fan. I'm a fan. So both Ben and Jerry Stiller. But yeah, shout out to Hag for coming in here and throwing me a curveball. I didn't know what you were getting at. Maybe I still don't know. But my guess is that you think that I look like Ben Stiller, and I will take that. You know, Ben Stiller is not a terrible looking guy. I hope not. I usually get that I look like Stephen King. You know, so hopefully any fans of Stephen King, like growing up, everybody's like, hey, are you Stephen King, or are you like his son? And I'm like, no, I'm not Stephen King's son. I don't even know Stephen King. I mean, I know the author, Stephen King, but I don't know him personally. But you know, like I said, Stephen King probably made a killing with all his books. I don't mind. Like if Stephen King, if you're really my dad, then you owe me a lot of back allowance, and I want to collect now. Shout out to Stephen King. Shout out to Ben Stiller. Shout out to Hag 90. You know, which is actually pretty cool, funny screen name. Yeah. I friendly trolling, I do not mind. You know, as long as nobody's offended, myself included. I will not be offended by looking like Ben Stiller, trust me. Anyway, we were talking about Adam hats here, and you know, Ian, who was here, Ian from London, actually has a Adam hat on his profile picture. And it's one of those brands that a lot of people haven't heard of. It just depends on what circles you kind of run in, whether you've heard of Adam hats or not. And just know that if you come across an Adam hat, and if you're on the border of whether you should get it or not, most people will probably say, yes, get the Adam hats, right? And some people would say, no, don't get it. It's like a cheaper hat, you know? Don't buy Adam hats if you're expecting like a felt, like a Borsalino, or a custom, like a Huff Bud. Like, so Morgan, maybe you don't want to buy Adam hats if you're spoiled by Huff Bud and by Mikhail's work. You know, you don't get that. You don't go buy Adam hats expecting to get like that level of quality. Like they didn't start off with that market in mind, but they're like beloved because they were like the everyman hat, right? So like I'm feeling this felt. This is supposedly like one of their better felts, and this would probably be one of my cheaper felts in my collection, to be honest. I love this hat. I like it a lot. I like that little drooping feather that it kind of like, I feel like it was done on purpose. That was a style that I've seen on Facebook of like the drooping feather. I don't know the origins of that. I feel like it's very popular with a lot of the ethnic hat people. So a lot of my Mexican Americans will probably have this, the old El Mero Mero style. You know, I feel like a lot of New Yorkers that were of Latino descent, you know, back in the 60s and 70s wore that little feather that's curled up. I could be wrong. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's something that's fitting with that style. So yeah, so shout out to my Mexican Americans and my El Mero Meros out there that rock their own individual hat style. I love it, and you know, I celebrate it. So you know, I mean, some people will actually think my style is that. I don't think it's that. I think it's my own style happens to be like a mixture of like Caribbean, right? Caribbean inspired, as well as New York in the 60s and 70s inspired. That's my thinking that my style comes from. So anybody that my relatives that kind of grew up in the 60s and 70s, you know, that this is probably like that kind of is my look, you know, and maybe even like the old mafia style, you know, from the golden era of the mafia, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and maybe even early 90s, but that I might be a stretch. Anyhow, just going over about the hat, I'll show you another angle of this. so you can see the feather. So you can see it kind of like, I feel like this feather was kind of curled up on purpose, right? So like the back of the feather is like really nice and taut, but it has like a nut, maybe even secondary. I haven't even looked to see if there's really two feathers. I always thought it was one, but it could just be two feathers in here. One of them is curled and the other one is like upright. I think it's like kind of sharp, right? Because when you look at it from the front angle, you can see the curl in the feather. And I had actually I had another hat. I had a Dobbs hat that had a very curled feather, right? I got that hat in New Jersey in a private sale, and I sold that hat to that gentleman that I keep talking about from Utah. To shout out to him. Hopefully he loves that hat. He told me he loved the hat. I love the hat, but he loved it more and gave me money for it. So he is now the new home of that hat. So hopefully, if you're out there and you're listening to the stream, I hope you enjoyed the hat. I really enjoyed it, but hopefully you enjoyed it more. It has that feather. Like I said, maybe when he saw the feather curled up, he knew that he was going to replace it, and that's okay. Once it's out of my possession, whatever you do with the hat, I'm okay with. Like, I mean, I'd like to see you just wear the hat, But if you don't, if you just bought the hat just to hang it up on your wall and admire it, that's cool too. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to do this hobby. I mentioned this the other day. The only wrong way to do this hobby is when you start dissing other people because of the way they express themselves, and I'm not a big fan of that. Anyhow, that was a side profile. This is my favorite profile shot of a hat because it feels like it's the decorative side, right? You can see the ribbon, you can see the thickness of the ribbon. You can see the length of the brim, right? The length of the brim matters. This is a stingy brim hat. I know a lot of folks are not into the stingy brim. I happen to be I've been called a stingy brim master on the Fedora Lounge, and I don't know if I'm a master. I'll never call myself, I'm kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. And maybe not even that. So yeah, I do favor the stingy brim. That's kind of why my style is geared more towards the 60s and 70s, when the stingy brim really kind of rose into prominence. It was kind of like the last hurrah of the hat, right? Was the stingy brim variety with the low crown. That's just, it is what it is. And I just happen to love that style. And if you like that style, the nice thing is, if you're a vintage nerd and you love stingy brims with like the ones that I go for, I think you're in the best boat, right? Like, you are in good shape because you're going to be able to get into this hobby and collect a lot more hats, and they're going to be a lot more affordable to you. Again, there's a large contingent of folks that would never touch a hat like this because, one, it's an Atom hat, and they know it's probably not going to be a felt that's going to be of the highest quality. And I'm not saying I don't love these hats. I do love these hats. It's just that I want to be honest about what you're going to get if you get an Adams hats. Now, it could be that if you got an Adam hats from a previous era, right? So my hat is probably from the 60s. Maybe if you got an Adam hats from like before the 40s, you're going to get a higher quality of felt. I just don't know because I don't own an Adam hats from that era. So somebody that does, maybe Ian's hat, it kind of looks like it might be from the era. When Ian goes and rewatches this, maybe Ian can talk about that, and the quality of his Atom hats, because it might be of a different era that's higher quality. Of this era, you're not going to get the highest quality felt, Anyhow, I love this profile pic, and I'll show you more pictures. Again, this is the lining. You can see that the lining in this hat looks like it didn't get worn a whole heck of a lot, right? So this hat was already in my possession when I took this photo. I believe I took this photo. So you can see, again, some of the lining and the logo. I kind of a little bit of a nerd sometimes on the logos. I'll take a look at a logo and I'm like, okay. I mean, that looks like a logo that will blend in with a lot of the logos at the time. But you can see Adam, New York there, and they have a little bit of the Latin there. So deuce, I know deuce means two, major or major, and then columna. So two major columns, I guess, would be the translation. I don't know Latin. I speak Spanish, so I kind of translate the Latin into whatever I think it might be in Spanish. But yeah, there you go. That's kind of another one of the shots that I really like, only because sometimes the lining, this just happens to be a very plain lining, like the white. But you saw when I was showing my Dunlap, which is considered a premium brand. I showed my Dunlap yesterday, and it had like that chocolate lining, and I'm like, wow! It's like almost looks like a pudding, right? That chocolate pudding. I was like, you can tell I haven't eaten anything today, so I'm like already getting to food. But yeah, it had that chocolate lining, and I was like, okay, that looks sharp. So yeah, I won't belabor this too much. It's just a very unremarkable kind of like lining. So there's not really anything really to tell. But I'll show you this shot here so you can see. So note that it says Atom Premier. All right. So essentially, a premier quality Atom hats. Again, I don't know if their premier quality could be compared to something like premier quality of a Hat Corporation of America hat or a Stetson or anybody else that puts out a premier quality hat. I would think not. Like based on this hat, given that this is allegedly one of the better quality hats, I got to tell you that the felt is not like it's nice and thick, so that's good, but it's not plush. So right, so in terms of thickness, it definitely has some thickness here, right? In my informal touch barometer, but it's definitely thick, but it's not like supple, right? If that makes any sense. Folks that kind of know about like the hat felts will probably maybe know what I'm talking about. I'm not that educated on felts. I'm just talking about experience and comparing them to something like my Celentino velour or my Borsellino velour, or even my Dobbs 25. My Dobbs 25 feels like cotton, right? Like I look at my Dobbs 25, and sometimes I see it in photos, and it looks like almost like I want to eat the hat because it just looks cottony. I don't know. I don't know what the exact term. I'm gonna say cottony. But you guys that know and have felt felts, like maybe you guys know what that means when I say that. Anyway, that was the sweatband. I don't think there was any other details on the sweatband itself, but you can see that. Remember, I mentioned it yesterday that when you're a vintage hat collector and you start seeing the black sweatbands, you see the black sweatband, and then you see the hat tip liner that I showed you, right? So this does have the plastic hat tip liner. When you see the combination of the two, then you start thinking, okay, 60s, right? 60s, maybe late 50s, but usually late 60s is more like it, or even 70s. If that manufacturer survived into the 70s, then your hat is probably, if it's vintage, it's probably from the 60s and 70s would be my recommendation based on my experience. Again, somebody else could come on here that knows better and gives you better information. I welcome them. I'm just telling you from my hat journey, that's my experience. So yeah, so unremarkable. Otherwise, again, I got this hat before I think it might have been my first gray hat, even though I don't think it's technically gray. Maybe it's gray now because the sun hit it. But there you go. When I peeked under the hood, right? That's my new term for when I pull the sweatband back, right? If you go and you have a hat that has a very brittle sweatband, I'm going to caution you not to peel or do it very carefully if you want to look under the hood, because you could really the sweatband could break on you, and I don't want to have that on my conscience. That's like, hey, Luke, I tried to do what you did and I broke my sweatband. Like when you can feel a sweatband or even look at a sweatband and know whether it's brittle enough where you don't want to peel it back. I do this usually once when I first get the hat, take a photo. That way I have these photos and I can share them. Maybe if I sell a hat, I can show the new owner, hey, this is it. This is what it looks like under the hood. That way you don't have to do it again. Maybe you still want to do it. I don't know. When the hat becomes your hat, you do whatever you want about it, right? But when it's my hat, I usually do this once, usually right when I get the hat, because I don't. Usually, what happens is the hat comes in good condition, and then I wear it so often that it will become brittle. So I just want to kind of tell you a little bit more about my experience and how these pictures come about. All right, this is something where I probably should have blurred this out, but I'm not. It doesn't seem like it's like that pertinent. All right. So when I look, part of this hat, like you can see, it has like maybe either one person or two people's name here written on the band, right, on this tag. The top one says something like J. Mueller, so maybe that was the original owner, right? It looks like they wrote over the part that had the reorder number. I can only guess, right? Maybe it faded with sweat. So you can see that there's some sweat or moisture markings on here. So they had the reorder number in there, and then they had the color, right? So it listed as the color as Bermuda. I believe that's the color, right? I don't know. It's hard to tell from this label because some of it or a great deal of it is faded. So either the model name or the color is called Bermuda. And if that's the color, like I'm seeing, right? If that orientation designates the color, then you can tell then this really was a green hat, right? So either it is or was a green hat and maybe became more gray looking, because when I bought the hat, I was like, okay, this is a gray hat. And you guys can tell me whether you think it looks more gray or green and when you're seeing it at this angle. For me, I think it looks gray, but at certain angles, if you see the photos that I shared earlier, you can see some green, like a green hint. And maybe that's how Bermuda that's the way the color Bermuda is. I always think of Bermuda grass, right? I don't think Bermuda grass is gray. I mean, I don't think anybody would get Bermuda grass if it was really gray. This one just happens to be gray, and I don't know why. So that's just some tidbit that I wanted to share. Underneath that, it has some writing. It looks like it's kind of like a date. I'm seeing like something like, it almost looks like they were trying to write December, or maybe maybe the name is, maybe that's a B. Maybe they were trying to write Deb. I don't know. I don't know what that means. And it has a set of numbers. I don't know if that was their attempt to write the order number that was faded from the top on the bottom because they knew it was the hat got wet. I don't know. I don't know the answer. These are the mysteries that one can only speculate on once the hat comes into your possession. And it's part of like the gift and the curse of having a vintage hat, right? It's a gift in that you can come up with a story and then you're like, imagine what the hat went through. And the curse is that you don't know the real answer, right? You can only speculate. So yeah, that's enough of the hat photos, but I will share my Chat GPT findings, right? I started leveraging Chat GPT, to kind of give you a little bit more of the history of Atom hats. So those that kind of, again, I know for a fact, I'm not trying to pretend that everything I get on Chat GPT is gospel truth. That is not the case. Just like everything you read on the internet is not the truth, or may not be the truth. Whatever you get from Chat GPT is probably a regurgitation of what the algorithm is fishing out from the internet. And we all know that there's a lot of misrepresentation and opinion on the internet. So when ChatGPT gives you something, don't just take it as the gospel truth. It could just be just somebody's bloviating, right? Maybe at some point ChatGPT will learn to get stuff out of my channel, and you'll see it, and it says, "Hey, I got this from this YouTube channel," but it doesn't mean it's just the truth according to what Luke says. Like not everything I say is probably accurate. It's just my opinion coupled with some research that I did. So just FYI, just a disclaimer there for anybody that like, he's like, oh no, Luke said, like, well, Luke doesn't know everything. I appreciate it that you think that I do. If you do think I do that, I don't. I'm fallible just like any human. I just do this to start a conversation. Anyway, Atom hats emerged in the 1920s. The trademark dates back to 1924. The founder says the hat brand was part of the Miller Brothers Hat Company of St. Louis, Missouri, right? Remember we talked about all the great cities that existed, right? We talked about Philly, New York, of course. We had Danbury, Connecticut, which we'll get to, at some point. We haven't really mentioned Danbury, but yeah, I don't think it's because I haven't covered a hat from Danbury, Connecticut. But again, we talked about all these major hubs for hat makings and hat corporate, the hat companies that put out. This is St. Louis's own hat company So again, I have no idea if there were other hat manufacturers in St. Louis at the time. But if you have any connection to St. Louis, Missouri, and you didn't know this already, well, Adam Hats has a connection to St. Louis. The parent brand was from St. Louis. So it says a hat manufacturer that produced several private labels, right? So in addition to putting out Adam Hats, they had very much private labels where Miller Brothers would produce the hat, but maybe they made it as like a store brand, right? So we talked about, I had one of my hats that I traced back to Hat Corporation of America, and Miller was doing the same thing, right? So you had a department store, they wanted to sell a hat under their name, maybe they would contract Miller Brothers if they got a really good deal, and Miller Brothers will make a hat with their store brand, and now they can sell it as, I don't know, such and such department store brand hat. It's just a way for Miller Hat Brothers and the department store to make some money together, and partner to sell hats. Anyway, the name choice. Adam was chosen for marketing impact. Interesting. I did not know this. Suggesting something primal, masculine, and essential. Right? I can always see the ads already. Adam Hats, primal, masculine, essential. Right? It's always like that thing of like the top three things, because they're trying to appeal, right? They're like, okay, who's going to be the target or the target audience for this hat? And we're talking about like the very much middle class or lower, or even lower class folks, right? That couldn't afford a Stetson or a Mallory or Dobbs. They're going to be able to afford an Adam Hats, right? To kind of wear a fine hat. And it's something that's affordable. They're going to try to appeal, right? So this is probably somebody that probably works on their car because they can't afford to take their car to a mechanic. So this is like that tough guy, right? That everyday guy, a guy that's at the bar that, like, you don't want to look at funny. He'll probably take off his Adam Hats and punch you in the face, right? It's like, or maybe he started off that way, and Adam Hats convinced him that he was a tough guy, right? So yeah, that was their target audience: primal, masculine, essential, right? Like all the things they wanted this hat to be for the people that were consuming them. So yeah, I don't know how good that marketing campaign was. Certainly you can already tell they were not trying to market to women, right? Or they already said it right there in the second word, masculine. This is a hat that's going to make you more of a man. Anyway, whatever. So yeah, peak popularity. So the peak popularity, apparently, according to ChatGPT, was in 1930s to the 1950s. Adam Hats became a household name in the United States. Wow, there you go. It was a household name. Again, this is all things that maybe I knew but forgot when I was researching Adam Hats in the past. But here it is back again. It was a household name. Their marketing strategy. Unlike premium brands like Stetson, Dobbs, and Mallory, Adam focused on stylish designs at a lower price point, right? So their model was a quality hat for every man, right? That's kind of like the Tommy Boy movie, right? Anybody who's seen Tommy Boy, they had what's that? I forgot. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm probably gonna butcher it. So it's like, it was Dan Aykroyd's. He was a competitor to Tommy Boy's Callahan Auto, and he's like, we make car parts for the everyday person, because that's who we are and that's what we care about. Yeah, I just recently watched it. Hey, Morgan, what did you think? Knowing that I like the movie, you don't need to tell me you like the movie, but did you like it? I'm curious now. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Chris Farley, and Tommy Boy is like, for everybody says, like, if you don't like Tommy Boy, you're not gonna like any Chris Farley movie. Like, it's like a gateway, like I mentioned. Yes, it was great. Good. Yeah, holy shnikes, right? He started, that was his catchphrase from Tommy Boy. He's like, holy shnikes. Shout out to Chris Farley, an actor that we also lost pretty tragically and pretty early. But luckily we still have some of his movies. Tommy Boy is probably his best movie that he ever put out. So if you don't know Chris Farley, you probably want to start with Tommy Boy. And then if you do want to like continue, then you can see his other movies like Black Sheep, Beverly Hills Ninja, And then he had a bit role in Wayne's World, and then obviously he was on SNL. Like I think probably maybe some people would argue that his best work was Saturday Night Live. You know, he had Matt Foley, the motivational speaker, and all the other great characters that he played on there. So shout out to Chris Farley. Shout out to his family that still is that's still doing it. He has a brother Kevin that I think still does comedy. Kevin Farley, just a funny family, and an iconic comedian. So anyway, Tommy Boy, Chris Farley. Anyway, back to the Chat GPT. Adam Hatch operated branded retail outlets across the country, often in busy downtown shopping districts. Many major U.S. cities had an Adam Hatch store, right? So this was interesting, right? I don't know how many other stores existed, right? But you know, like kind of like Tesla, right? You can go to a mall, like a fancy mall, and go to a Tesla store to buy yourself a Tesla. I don't know who does that. Like, I don't know who goes to the mall and comes back home with a Tesla, to be honest. I mean, I'm like, if you got that kind of money, he's like, hey, honey, you know, I just have a hankering for a Tesla. I'm gonna go out to the mall and go get one. You can do that. You can do that here locally at our Tyson's Corner Mall. You can do that I know there's several malls that have, usually it's like a flagship mall that will have a Tesla. But apparently that's how Adam Hatch operated in a lot of major hubs. I'm sure they had one in Manhattan, and they had one probably in Philly, and any other like major place, like a urban business center where somebody they could stop by and say, you know what, I want that hat. So you can go in and pass an Adam Hatch store and then do a double take and be like, I'm getting that one. That's mine. So yeah, you had Adam Hatch stores. I think they existed in movies. There's a movie that I can't recall. Maybe it's The Irishman, or maybe it's one of those movies that people love that had an Adam Hatch store. Look it up. I don't know. There's a movie that I watched that is known for having an Adam Hatch store. Maybe it was Road to Perdition. I don't know. Road to Perdition is a great hat movie, by the way. If you like Tom Hanks, watch Road to Perdition. It's a gangster movie, but it has great hats. It has great actors. You got Paul Newman, Tom Hanks, and Jude Law. Three great performances in Road to Perdition. So I wholeheartedly recommend it if you're a gangster movie fan, or if this is a movie fan of a hat movie fan. Lots of great hats in that movie, and it's a Chicago-based gangster movie. I recommend it. Tom Hanks. Anyway, moving on. Major Adam Hatch had branded retail outlets across the country, often in busy downtown shopping districts. Many major U.S. cities had an Adam Hatch store, usually in prime locations. And then their price point, we talked about it. Their felt fedoras were usually priced lower than high-end hats, making them accessible to middle-class buyers, right? So advertising, heavy national advertising in newspapers, radio, and magazines. Slogans often emphasize fashion and affordability, right? So that one of their slogans are Adam hats are made to be worn. That really tugs at my kind of hat guy, right? My kind of hat wearer is like somebody that wears their hats. Again, no offense to those that like to collect and don't wear them, and they're just your showpiece, right? They like the wall queens or whatnot. But I'm just somebody that really likes wearing their hats, especially when I feel good, or I want to feel good. I will wear my hats, right? So just shout out to my hat wearers out there. I think, Morgan, you're one of them as well. Wear your hats, you know? Anyway, quality designations. I probably won't go extensively into this, but apparently they had 6 quality designations. They had a standard quality, and I'm going off from the lowest quality to their highest quality. So their hierarchy was standard or no label, right? Then they had a deluxe quality. Then they had the aristocrat, right? It's fancy names, right? It's kind of like some of the names that Kevin gives his hats. Then he had the Fifth Avenue at 4th. Then you start getting to the executive, right? You got the executive quality. Wow. And then you had Adam Premier or Super Deluxe, which are really rare. Now, again, if you recall, my hat is a Premier. So according to this, and I don't know how like accurate this information, that this would be their highest tier. I'm like, if this is their highest tier, then I don't know what their other quality is, honestly. Maybe, and it could be that, again, like I mentioned earlier, that it varied like over time. Maybe their premier quality degraded, from the 40s, and usually I say 40s because that's very common. A lot of people only buy hats from the 40s and earlier because they think anything made after the 50s, right? Because we know that the hats declined starting in the 50s, after World War II, and people started affording things like the automobile. But some people do that because they only want to collect hats from the heyday of hats, so they will say 40s or older. Maybe Adam Hats is very similar in that after like the 40s and the 50s, 60s, when this hat was made, they declined, and a premiere is not like a premiere used to be. I don't know the difference. Maybe somebody that knows Adam Hats and is a huge Adam Hats nerds, they can go and they can really add their 2 cents in here. I'm only talking about what I get from my own research, my own independent research, and I don't pretend that anything I say is gospel, right? So you shouldn't take that as gospel. I'm just telling you what ChatGPT told me. Anyhow, they had other labels or sublines. They had a sport clad, they had a Benchmade, and they also had a hybrid called the Adam Aristocrat Fifth Avenue. It said here it was a combination label seen in ads suggesting overlap in marketing tiers. So just to give you some flavor of Adam Hats, they had a cultural impact here. It says Adam Hats were widely recognized in mid-20th century America. Stores were often fixtures in downtown landscapes, sometimes even converted theaters. The company leaned into the idea that every man needed a hat for work, leisure, and social life, right? So that's kind of like I mentioned, that's very much in line. You can see the connection between me and Adam Hats. Like I always feel like there's like everybody's a hat nerd, they just don't know it yet. And it feels like that was what Adam Hats felt like. That was their motto. Everybody wants to own a hat. They just can't because of finances or because of whatever else. We're gonna serve that audience, and they, by all means, were very successful, at least for a period in time. Then we talk about the decline in Adam Hats, right? So we know already that this is kind of like the truth, the 60s and onward, right? As men's hat wearing declined after JFK and changing fashion trends, Adam Hats lost its footing, right? The retail closures, the chain of Adam Hat stores began shutting down or being repurposed, often turned into theaters, discounters, and apparel shops. Absorption, right? By the 1970s, the brand had largely disappeared as an independent entity, right? That happened to a lot of manufacturers, right? The 70s were like the last hurrah. They were like, maybe some of them made it into the 80s, but for the most part, and obviously we know Stetson kind of made it. Stetson is still produced. I believe there are others, maybe even Dobbs. I think Dobbs was recently revived, and you still have a Dobbs brand that's modern. So go just make sure you fact check me on that. And then legacy here. Today, Adam hats are collectible among vintage and hat enthusiasts. Surviving examples, especially executive and Fifth Avenue models, are sought after for their quality and mid-century styling. And vintage advertising posters and store photos are popular among collectors of Americana. So there you go. So this is again, even though this was a brand that was the everyday brand, they weren't known as the highest tier. This was a brand that a lot of collectors love now, including myself, because they just had a place in the hat history, right? They etched their name in that tier system, right? Where you had Stetson, Dobbs, Kavanaugh, Dunlap, and all these other like Borsalino and all the other major brands that were like producing only fine felts for like luxury consumers. Millard Brothers said, you know what? There's a consumer out there that needs a hat that they can afford, and they cater to that, and that's probably why they tugged at the hearts. These were probably everybody's first hat, right? Is that, hey, I own a Adam hats now, but I'm gonna get myself a Stetson, or I'm gonna get myself a Dobbs one day. You'll see. Once this business gets underway, I will be able to afford that Stetson or that Dobbs or that Kavanaugh or that Dunlap. All right. Anyway, I also pulled a couple things here from Miller Hat Brothers. I'm not going to go into it. It kind of, a lot of it's repeating, right? Because apparently Adam hats was the only real, even though they had other lines, they really were only known for Adam hats. Besides Adam hats, they really were only they were only really pushing out, besides Adams, they were pushing out and marketing to department stores, right? So they were partnering with department stores and producing hats on the department store names. So if you have a hat that you recognize, right? Like if you have a department store hat that you know is vintage, and then you decide to peek under the hood and it looks like my label, well, chances are that you have what's like, oh, I don't know what hat that is. It's probably an Adam, a Miller Brothers hat that was produced for a department store, and you just happen to have an example of, right? If you like to peek on the hood and you like to find out the history of that hat, I recommend going out to the Fedora Lounge and going out to the other forums that might exist and the other internet sources to kind of find out, how do you source the information? How do you date the hat, right? It's important to a nerd like me. Maybe it's not important to everybody. I just happen to geek out about that stuff. So if you do too, at least now you know how to get the information. So if you want, you can pause this if you want to like read it on your leisure. Same with this. Again, talking about Miller Hat Brothers and their place in the history. And a lot of it is basically all tied to Adam hats. So a lot of this is redundant with what I already showed you. So I won't read it. But that's basically it in terms of the slideshow. I just wanted to showcase this hat, right? Because I just got off of doing Dunlap yesterday, right? I profiled my Dunlap Supreme quality, I believe it was Supreme quality hat, which was very much one of those like kind of apex hat brands, right? Right up there with Kavanaugh, Stetson, Borsalino, and all the other major hat brands, Mallory. But I wanted to also say, hey, I'm not just somebody that collects those kind of hats. I have plenty of Adam hats. I also have plenty of champ hats, which I'll profile in some other. I don't know if I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that I'll do it when I feel like it, but yeah, you can pause this if you want. But what I'll do is I'll stop sharing my screen if I can do that without breaking anything. Let's see, stop sharing. All right, hopefully I'm back. Got my ugly mug back on full screen here. So that was my Adams hat. My Adam, I keep saying Adam sometimes because of that last name, the popular Adams family, but it's not Adams, it's Adam, Adam. Yes, full screen is back. Excellent. Thank you, Morgan. Yeah, so that was Adam hats. Again, I have no idea how people feel about Adam hats. I think I did justice to what I know, definitely, and I think it does justice to like what's the general sentiment about Adam hats. Again, not for everybody. If you're spoiled by felts, don't buy Adam hats. Like I think Adam hats is kind of like the perfect. I mentioned before, it's the perfect knockaround hat, right? If you want a hat that you don't really want to spend a lot of money on, even if it's vintage, and you want something that just looks kind of cool, it looks vintage, and it has some of that flair. I think Adam hats and also champ hats is for you. I really love. I have a kind of special soft spot for the knockaround hat. It doesn't mean I abuse these hats. I don't abuse my hats. But I have a special place for, there was a working class guy out there that bought this hat, and they just wanted to have a fine hat at a good price. And I love that. I think there's something special about that. You would argue that that's a lost art, right? How everything's gotten a lot more premium, right? You can't get a cheap car these days. You can't buy a brand new car and not spend $30,000 on a car these days. It's just gotten out of hand, right? We need a little bit more of that Adam hats for cars and a lot of other products out there because inflation is eating our lunch, man. Like we're paying $4, $5, $6 for a dozen eggs now. No longer can you buy eggs for $1 a dozen. And now, like, if you're doing like what Luke's doing, you're at the supermarket, like looking through all his eggs and making sure he doesn't get a broken egg, right? because now it's some real money being spent on eggs, right? And all the other stuff that you have to buy to eat nowadays. Anyway, I'll get off that soapbox. I'm a natural born cheapo, so I'm just gonna, at least what kind of collector I am. Anyway, this is a good kind to wrap this up. This was Hat Chat number 18. Thanks for rocking with me. Shout out to Ian. Shout out to Morgan for rocking with me today. And shout out to Hag90. Even though all he did was came back and told me I look like Ben Stiller. Again, I don't know if he was trolling me. I don't know. I treat it as if it was a serious question. Again, I'm not opposed to a little trolling here and then. It's all in good fun. It's like they call it busting my chops, right? Maybe Hag was busting my chops. That's cool. I wasn't insulted by it. Hag, hopefully you come back and we can learn a little bit more about apparently my connection to Ben Stiller. I had no idea. Shout out to Ben Stiller. Shout out to his dad, the late great Jerry Stiller. And that's it. That was my hat chat for today. Thanks for rocking with me. If you find this later on, the only thing I'm going to ask, if you find this hat chat, sometime in the future or whatnot, hit the like button. Thank you, Morgan. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the show. Morgan says, yay, great show. Shout out to Morgan, my faithful moderator. Ian, I'm probably gonna have to make Ian a moderator as well. Hopefully, Morgan, you're okay with that. I don't want to I think both of you guys have kind of both rocked with my show. I feel like, you know what? Maybe I'll just do that now. Let's see if I can do it now without, let's see if I can do it. Add as a moderator, standard moderator. There you go, Ian. You may find this later on, but now you will probably have a wrench on your name. So when you post, you will be deputized just like Morgan, and you guys will be my two deputies here. We got Morgan representing Gen Z, Ian representing the baby boomers, and me, of course, your faithful host representing Generation X. And we're gonna come at you live every day. Well, maybe not every day, but for now, every day with Hat Chat. And I hope you rock with your boy Luke, right? So if you find this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Help me to grow this channel if you can. Share it with your friends. Maybe your friends are wanting to get into hats, and maybe this channel will help them out. Maybe I can do some of your dirty work for you. Morgan says, if the good Lord's willing and the creeks don't rise every day. That's right. I like that. Morgan, I don't know if I could repeat that, but I like that. Morgan said, if the good Lord's willing and the creeks don't rise, we'll do this every day. And hopefully you can join me. If you didn't join me live this time, you can do it next time. But you always find my videos up on here. So for now, I'm going to sign off. And this is Good Luke's signing off for Hat Chat number 18. And the only thing besides liking and subscribing is just do me one favor. Morgan, you have a great day as well, my friend. If you do one thing, is just for me, stay hatting, my friend. Have a great day. Ciao.